And it's time once again for another interview with our friend Frank Gargano. He's with the Six Steps Home and, of course, is a realtor with Realty Executives. And each week he shares with us a couple of homes that perhaps you should be looking at because they're extremely well priced. Welcome back to the show, Frank.
Thanks, Rich.
Okay, and then we're going to talk about some new home communities and what builder closeouts and all this stuff and see if we can clarify that picture. But first of all, let's sell some real estate.
All right, sounds good. Rich, today I have a couple of REO, real estate owned, bank owned properties here for us to take a look at. The first one is a villa. It's priced at $164,900. It's a one-story, as you can see. It is 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. It's almost 1,700 square feet and it has a 2-car garage. It's in a community that's got very lush grounds around there. It's got a couple of pools, a tennis court, and it's a gated community. Very, very nice property for that $164,900. The second property that I have is a 2-story home, as you can see here. It's priced at $229,000. It's 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. It's almost 1,600 square feet. And it does have a 2-car garage. It's in the northwest area of town, and it's very, very highly upgraded. It's got special textured walls and painted, custom designer painted walls, granite countertops, and all the whole host of upgrades. Sits on a cul-de-sac lot, and that price is $229,000 again.
Okay, let's talk about the new home community, because even in the few weeks that we've been back on the air, we haven't addressed this particular area. Let's talk about you as a realtor and you're working with the builder community, because there was a day in Las Vegas that builders would not cooperate with realtors, right, saying, I don't need you, I've got my own sales force, I've got my own lending, I've got all of this stuff. But then they realize that they need professional salespeople to assist them to sell homes.
Right.
Tell us about the evolution, where it's led to, and where we stand right now in terms of the new home communities, and then from there take it on to some of these builder closeouts that we've got.
Well, with what you're talking about, the builders, as most people know, have the tract agents, what we call the tract agents, the on-site agents. There's usually 1 or 2 of them there.
But most of them now work for real estate companies.
A lot of them do.
A lot of them do. So
a lot of them do, but they have to be licensed and always have, Rich. So, but they specifically have to sell those tracts on that type of a license. So they can't go out and sell you general real estate or that type of thing. So anyway, they're on site there and they sell the homes, and you or I come in as a buyer and they service our needs and that type of thing. But I think several years ago the builders realized that while we could expand our sales force by X amount of thousands of realtors type of thing, if we do what's called cooperate, and everybody's heard that term. Right. You've seen the little signs in the tracks and that type of thing. So that means basically that they will allow an outside agent to come in, an outside broker or whatever, to come in and represent that particular buyer in the purchase of that new home, and they will accommodate them to do that. And so they're perfectly comfortable with that. And like I said, it expands their sales force. If they can get agents coming in, of course they have their own traffic that comes in and sell it on their own.
And one of the other big changes is there's 2 parts of the new home community. Like, for instance, we're here at Ladera Canyon with Richmond American Homes, and they've got these 5 models that are for sale in the general traffic. But then there are many builders who have 1 or 2 or 3 homes, and they're offering incredible incentives. Why don't you address that?
Well, that's the builder closeout, and I think that's a segment of your great show here. The builder closeouts are basically when a builder at a tract gets down to a certain number of homes left, when it's no longer feasible to have a tract agent on site, or whether they want to move that tract agent to another community that they're opening up and that type of thing. They'll go ahead, and I've done this for years, and I represent several builders here to do that. They'll go ahead and list the properties with me, and I'll have their properties as a builder closeout. And so then they're free to go and then go to their other communities, or tract agents, spread it out, and I'll take the remaining properties and I'll market those properties and sell those properties.
Now, on those properties that these select builders come to you, do they tell you what incentives they're willing to throw in?
Most certainly.
Okay, give us an example of some of them without necessarily mentioning, because we want people to call you and say, hey, show me some of those. So give me some examples.
You bet. Well, it ranges, a pretty wide gamut. The builder closeouts that I get listed are actual model homes that are pretty decked out, as you know. And then there are what we call production homes. Production homes are the homes that they built in that particular community that didn't sell for a reason. Maybe most of the time they've been sold. The financing didn't go through, something happened with the buyer or whatever, and so they have a production home, it's up and ready to go. It's got the maybe the upgrades or the things, the buyer selections that the buyer chose. Typically they're fairly neutral. Sometimes there's some nice upgrades. Yeah. Those upgrades, the builders are willing to, a lot of those times, are willing to go ahead and deduct that from the price or to give those upgrades as an incentive. The same with the model homes. Maybe they'll have an appliance package, Rich, or plantation shutters, as you can see around the home here, or blinds in the window coverings, washer and dryer, that type of thing. The furnishings, there's a common misconception. Years ago, the builders used to sell and give the key and say, here, this is your home with all the furnishings and things like that, the nicely decorated furnishings. That's gone by the wayside for the most part years ago. A lot of these, the furnishings are rented or they're used in other homes, so they take the furnishings out, but everything else stays the same. You've got surround sound, you've got alarm systems, you've got a lot of different amenities that you'll get in that house.
Do you find that you've got the, I remember, and I know the figure is no longer correct only because of inflation and appreciation, but I remember as many as 10 or 15 years ago, it's not uncommon for a builder to put over $100,000 upgrade in each individual model, a la the pictures, the granite countertops, right, the wall coverings, etc. Where and how does the appraisal factor in to that? In other words, the builder is going to say, I'm going to throw these in. So in almost all instances, I would think that the home is going to come in under appraised value.
Right. Typically, because of that, the furnishings excluded from that, the appraisals, we typically don't have a problem with that because they're so highly upgraded. And some of the homes that they actually sell out in the community to a prospective buyer, they'll upgrade the homes too, much like what the models are. And so they had to get financing, and they'll use those for appraisals to make the value on the model home, if that makes sense.
I know this is a tough question, but under normal circumstances, of course, depending on the size of the home, the size of the lot, etc., but people can actually expect to save $50,000 or more on some of these builder closeouts because of these incentives. Is that not correct?
Oh yeah, easily, and sometimes even more. It's not uncommon to see $30,000 to $70,000 in savings on these builder closeouts. They're really, really, really good deals. The reason I don't have a lot of them on the show, can I address this now?
Absolutely, why not?
The reason I don't have a lot of these on the show right now is because actually, Rich, they go pretty quick.
They're a lot like some of these great real estate owned properties.
Yes.
If they're that good,
they go really quick.
And people who can afford to buy the homes and qualify for them will get them.
Right. The scenario, Rich, is something like this, is that one of my builders will contact me and say, I'll have 6, 7, 8 homes coming up for you online, and they'll be at this community, this community, this community. So I'll know basically where they're at, what models they are, if they're model homes or they're production homes, so I'll be able to tell with pricing that way. So I'll know ahead of time, before I even get them listed, what I'm going to have coming up as far as inventory. And I have a buyer following, a preferred buyer following that know that I do this through basically word of mouth and now on your fine show, is that they know that I'm going to be getting these things, and they'll call me up and put their name in the hat, so to speak. They'll say, Frank, we want to utilize you and your services if you get, these are my parameters. If one of those homes fits that buyer's parameters, I'll call them up, and 90% of the homes that I know that I'm going to get or I get go before they even hit the multiple listing. So if I get 10 homes, for instance, I'll sell 9 of them almost before it even hits the multiple listing. I'll put one on.
Are the majority of these going to be owner occupied, or do you find investors who are calling you because these are still good value?
Rich, that's a good question. Actually, that's gone up and down.
It has.
Yeah,
okay.
Years ago, 10, 15 years ago, it was primarily owner occupied.
Right.
Then during the boom, it was investor owned, and then now it's getting back to owner occupied again. Okay. So that's the flavor. That's where it's going.
Okay, if people needed to find out how many of these homes you've got, where they are, what the incentives are, how would they get hold of you?
You can reach me direct. My cell phone is 596-2040.
596-2040.
That's
Good.
it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.